So today, Sunny, I was just introducing how we're going to talk
Yes.
about power, about what power is, how power affects us on an individual basis, and how power affects things like your health. Because
Yeah.
how powerful you feel is very necessary for your health. So the more powerful you feel, the healthier you are, the stronger your immune system. Because what power is, it's not about having control of other people or like being a dictator or something and having an army and being in charge and telling people what to do and they listen to you. It's more about your inner world and your internal concept of power. So like when I was thinking about this, I thought, when do I feel the most powerful? Like I had this thought today and I was meditating actually when I was having this thought. And I thought, I feel the most powerful when I feel still, when I feel really present.
Mhm.
I'm just being and I feel still. So I'm gonna open it up. Like, when does everybody else like? When would you say you feel the most powerful? Ray, you want to start off?
Mhm. Yeah, so as you were talking about power, the thing that came to me was emotional neutrality.
hmm
So I feel like power is you having this stable kind of frequency. So no matter what happens in the 3D, say you there's like a problem or something goes wrong, and power is almost like you maintaining your emotional baseline. So you're not allowing something outside of you to kind of take your peace away from you, your stillness, your certainty. And it's the ability to remain still, as you said, in that moment and to know who you are
hmm
and to like if something goes wrong it's like instead of rather going into panic survival mode, it's more about remaining firm and steady in yourself and thinking, okay, that's happened, but I can deal with it and I know who I am. So I feel like it's kind of partially to do with knowledge of who you are and
hmm
knowing yourself, and also being able to maintain a neutral emotional baseline so you don't let anything like bug you essentially. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I think it's kind of in that moment of reaction as well. Like if something happens, you say like an incident happens, which where you would normally react, is that pause between to maintain level-headedness, if you like, and not having that reaction and maintaining, like you said, Ria, just this sense of knowing yourself and a sense of calmness and stillness.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Sunny?
Um, bit of what Greg said. It's more like when you're staying calm and resolving a situation, problem solving.
hmm hmm
That's when they feel most powerful. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But you know, there's another thing that Rhea said as well about knowing your true self.
hmm
That in itself takes a sustained amount of power to maintain that. You know, to retain this true sense of self, who you really are. That is a power. That's an energy that you need to be able to hold on to constantly. You know, throughout your day to remember your true self.
hmm
I think that in itself is quite a strong power as well.
It's kind of like you're anchored within yourself. You're internally anchored when you are truly powerful, when you have like an internal concept of power. And even like when Rhea talks about remembering the truth, it's you are the creator of your reality. And when you can own that and take radical responsibility for everything regarding you stop blaming people, because when you blame people, what you're doing is you're giving away your energy, you're giving away your power. And like we said, power is energy, right? So a lot of what happens is when people are in victimhood, for example, that's a whole identity based on powerlessness. So we feel like, oh, what you kind of do is you sit in the denial of God and your true self, because you're like, I have zero power. I am not the captain of my own ship. I don't run my world. Things are being ran for me. That means that anything can happen to me. I'm kind of at the mercy of life. which means that you're constantly giving your power away, and then you're more, ill, and then you want to do things where you take people's energy. So with victimhood, what happens is you'll kind of want like sympathy, right? So sympathy is you channeling your energy into people. That's why when you're around people who are victims, you feel like shit yourself because you're like, whoa, I feel really drained right now because that person has just like, it's like an energy vampire. But the thing is, when they take your energy, they don't take your energy and it's not used to make them feel happier. In fact, what happens is, so let's say they're feeling angry and that someone's being a victim, they're feeling angry, they're speaking to you, you're like, oh no. And then you take their energy and then your anger gets bigger. So it's like just negativity. It doesn't benefit either the person who's sympathizing or the victim.
It
Yeah.
becomes, oh, go on, you go ahead.
No, you go first.
Well, I was just going to say, it becomes like if you've got two victim mindsets as well, it becomes a very vicious loop, and they're both feeding off of each other and feeding this victim, this kind of the victim mentality that they have. But it's interesting, we've started talking about power, and it's already gone over to this kind of victim mindset that people do adopt. I do think though that is something that comes from it's quite prevalent in people who've suffered trauma to have this to have a victim mindset, and because their power, if you like, is so low that it sucks all the ability to maintain this kind of this level-headedness that we were talking about earlier on, knowing their true self. And it's almost like with the victim mindset, it's almost if you think of like trauma as like grief, okay, like when someone passes away, you have people go through different stages, like denial and anger and these kind of things. I think the victim mentality is almost something similar that would happen to people who've had trauma. This why me? Why has this happened? And they can't retain this kind of feeling of centeredness, of knowing their true self. And then the blame culture starts. They blame everyone else around them for things that are happening, and then that just fuels a cycle of it just makes it worse. It kind of snowballs into this into this victim mentality, which is a real drop in a person's power, I would say. Sorry, Rita, I interrupted you when you were going to talk.
No, that's at all. So, just adding on to what Priya said about like the responsibility part, the term responsibility stuck out to me because there's a book that I recommended to Priya, All the Answers Are Within by Manny Konecki. And in the book, he breaks down like different words and the meanings of them. So for responsibility, he broke it down in two words. So responsibility, as in like your ability to respond to things that happen to you in your life. And I feel like I love it because it kind of encapsulates what power is. Like, say something bad happens to me, and say if I make a mistake and I don't take responsibility for it, it means that my ability to respond to that situation has been taken away from me. My power has essentially been taken away because I'm blaming it on somebody else, which means that I'm externalizing my power and giving it to someone else. So, for example, I spent time in India, and this narrative that I witnessed in people is, oh, for example, in my grandma, and there was a bit of conflict, and then she kind of gave her power away and said, oh, well, this bad thing is happening is because God's doing it, or God doesn't love me, or God is mad at me. And it's like she could have taken there were two things she could have done, right? She could have taken responsibility for her actions, which means that she would have been able to respond to that situation in a way that could have not stripped her of all her power, but instead she gave away all her power and blamed like a third external party, which means that if it's God's fault, that means that you're powerless. Like, you can't do anything because there's this bigger power outside of you that is controlling you. And I think it really always comes back to, when people say that knowledge is power, and I think to expand on that, it's more like self-knowledge is power. Because if you know that you're the one that's creating everything, everything is an emanation from you, everything is holographically simulated from you, like it's a holographic simulation and you're the source of it all, then it's then you realize that you do have all the power in the world and that it is inside of you. But I can see why people get so stuck in the world because with everything that's built in this kind of world is built to kind of strip us from our power and make us forget that it's all inside of us, which is why even for somebody like who has read loads of books and documentaries and watched everything there is on spirituality, it's still easy to fall back into the trap of things are happening to me rather than I'm creating and aligning with those things.
That's about embodiment, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's where it really comes down to the practice of embodiment. And so, like you said, Ria, you can read all the books in the world, and you can watch all the documentaries, and you can go through Gaia and like watch every documentary on there. But
Yeah.
if you're not truly embodying it and then living with it, then you don't have that. You don't have that power, and you are going to externalize a lot more. And yeah, I've heard Priya mention the one by Manly Conley a couple of times.
Yeah. Read it. It's amazing. My favorite book.
I love the way
Yeah,
he breaks down words, even like things like meant. Anything with MENT on the end is to do with mind. So it's like achieve mind, resent mind, because what he says is that language is telling you how reality is created. It's created through the mind, right? So your mind creates reality. And when you can understand that truth and keep that with you every single day, like remind yourself. I think me and Rhea were having a conversation about something, and I said, Rhea, look, oh, she doesn't like. I won't go into specifics, but I was like, look, Rhea, you have all this knowledge about how life is created by you, but you're forgetting it in this particular situation. You always need to apply. Okay, I create reality. What is it like? If something's triggering you, it's showing you something within you, and it's a teacher. So what a victim would do is they would blame the teacher. Oh no, it's God, it's my partner, it's my dog, it's this person, rather than looking at the trigger and using that as a like, this is teaching me something. What is it teaching me? And that's your ability to respond, right? Because victims react. Whereas people who aren't victims, they can respond. They can come from equanimity. And they actually mention equanimity in the Bhagavad Gita as the ability to respond to success and loss in the same way. So you're not getting overly emotional when someone's criticizing you, but you're not getting really excited when someone is praising you. You're kind of just, it's like emotional neutrality that you're maintaining. I think that's where your power is.
yeah, I would agree. I think it is about retaining that center, that kind of center line, and just but constantly as well. And this is something that like Ananda Mayama talks about as well. Is just constantly maintaining that level of remembering your true self and holding on to holding on to that power. Yeah.
It makes sense now why, like, for example, they talk about Nam Japana. So Sunny, you probably heard about this as well, and Ria knows as well, and Greg, about Nam Japana. They talk a lot about this in Sikhism, where they say that you should always say God's name or a mantra. And what this does, it keeps you anchored always, because what I realized, even personally, like the realizations I was having from it is, if there's a thought coming, because thoughts are lies, okay? Like every thought, like for example, a thought, I'm 29, that's a lie, because in a year I won't be 29. It's true now, but it's not always going to be true. So the only thing that's real is God, because God, the thing that's the truth is that which is unchanging, and God is unchanging, and that is our true nature. So when we're constantly repeating God's name, it could be like, oh, am I doing okay? How do I look? Oh my God, is my hair looking weird? Then I'll just go back to my anchor, which is like Waheguru or whatever you want to say, and then you kind of, it helps you just remain really anchored and in that remembrance, and you just remember the truth. I think that's why they make such a big deal out of it.
Sonny, you want to speak on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm quite new to this area, so you lot are a bit more well versatile in it than me. But yeah, like I think we've all got different means of power and what we think of victimhood.
Mhm.
But the way I view it as like you talk about two victims together, it's like two bad vibes reinforcing each other. But it's all about a mindset. Linking back to what you guys saying, nothing's actually real, and it's up to you what you make of it, right?
Hmm. That's true. I think
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
victims would be annoyed with each other, to be honest, because let's say you're a victim and then you have another victim. The only thing you want from someone else is sympathy, right? You want their energy. But the victim's like, no, give me your energy. And it's like, no, take my energy. So I don't know how well, because I feel like they'd go for someone who's maybe like a real empath. I mean, I know, Greg, we spoke, I had created that video about empathy, and I feel like you were a little bit confused about why I created that, but obviously I explained. But yeah, even in the book one, he talks about empathy and how empathy, if you break it down, so it's emotions, so M, and then the pathy represents path. So it's the transference of energy. Right. So when you have empathy, let's say there's someone victim minded in front of you, they and then you are empathic with them, they are transferring energy to you and they're taking energy from you. So we're always kind of absorbing people's energy. So it could be positive or negative. So it's about protecting yourself. And I mean, we were discussing this. I was discussing this with Rhea, like, how can we be there for someone, but then also protect our energy and not be affected by the negativity that we're kind of exposed to?
I think that comes down to remembrance.
Mm-hmm.
It's all no matter what situation you're in, it's about maintaining that remembrance at all times. But to your point about being in these, relationships of cycles, I think a lot of relationships actually, and I'm thinking of some that I personally know of, they get founded in that kind of victim mentality to begin with, and that they start propping themselves up, propping each other up, not in the most positive of ways necessarily, but it's very much founded in this victim mentality that people come together over. And then when there's no remembrance in that kind of relationship, over time, it will start to deteriorate. And what I've seen as well is that it can deteriorate in quite an extreme way, when something is founded in that kind of in that in that powerless, when both people are stripped of their power and they're trying to prop each other up through the sharing of trauma, if you like, or just through this victim mentality, then that's when things can go really south.
But they
Mm-hmm.
reinforce each other, right?
Mm.
Because like one alcoholic, he's going to encourage another alcoholic to have another drink, like that type of concept.
Mm. And then
Yeah.
let's say one of you wants to quit, then it's really difficult because the other person is kind of reinforcing that, no, no, just stay with it. And it benefits that person when you're continuing to stay in that energy, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So
I just thought,
right.
sorry,
Go ahead.
As you guys were talking, I thought of something, and I thought kind of on like the nature of us, like we're so powerful that even when we like give our power away, we are giving our power away so much to the point that we're making something else more powerful than us. I don't know, it kind of seems like a paradox, right? Like we have so much power that if we think that we're powerless, we literally become powerless. And yeah, there's more to it, but it's kind of gone because yeah, anyway, what you were saying.
Yeah, I think I read that in a book actually. It's like you're powerful. You only feel like you're powerless because you're the one who gave your power away to someone
Yeah.
else.
Like
And
you have that much power.
exactly.
It's like,
But then you blame that other person as well for
Yeah.
yeah.
giving your power to them, and
Mhm.
again that cycle starts.
Yeah.
And it's like you have so much power that, for example, in the book, The One, it talks about how the only truth that exists is the truth that you create. So if I believe that I am powerless, I have so much power that I literally create that reality to be true. So a victim is, one could say, powerless, but also still has that power because they still have the essence of God, which is the essence of creation. So within their victimhood and their story that they tell themselves and other people, it's like they're still right. Like in their sense, they're actually still right, and what they're saying is true. Because if I think I'm a victim, which I did a very long time ago, I thought, oh, I'm a victim, God hates me. And I was powerful in that sense because I believe that so much so that it literally manifested as the truth. And I saw that so much evidence of that in my life. So yeah, it's like a funny little paradox, isn't it? It's like I don't think we can actually imagine and fathom how much power we have because so much like so often we tend to give it away, but even if we give it away, that's still our power, and we're still giving. Like if I'm propelling someone up and I'm getting lower, I'm still the one that's powerful and holding them up like on a pedestal. Like that's still me, isn't it? And I feel like life has a funny way of like showing you that, always coming back to reminding you who you are. Because even if I give my power and I'm a victim and I'm like, oh, it's God's fault and it's their fault, it's still me creating that truth, you know?
Did you have a similar conversation like this with your grandmother when she was talking like that? Like, is that something that she's open to? I'm just wondering.
You know, for the love of God, I tried so hard. I really did. And I feel like sometimes she would understand it, but I think it was almost like a language barrier because in English, I'm able to express and articulate myself and these thoughts that I have so well. But in Punjabi, it's kind of harder to translate that over. And I have tried, and she does listen in that moment. But I think with age and like because her mindset, like when you go down a certain path so many times, it's like that's your path, right? And sometimes bringing someone back from that path and saying there's other options, it's like they're aware that they're there, but they always go to the route that they feel most comfortable in. So she always comes back to kind of like her baseline, which is I'm not powerful, everything's powerful outside of me. So it's one of those. I think it takes a lot of time to build like new neural pathways of, oh, maybe I do have power. But yeah, I mean, one can only hope, right? Hopefully, hopefully the seeds that I planted will just be nurtured themselves by life, and she will maybe see a different point of view. But she's open to it. But I think sometimes she still kind of struggles because she's so used to thinking a certain way.
Yeah,
But
and I
that's good
think
to see that she's open to it. Sorry to interrupt you, Greg. Because if you
no,
think about
you
that
go ahead, Tommy.
generation, they don't think like they're a product of the environment. They don't think about there's mental health or stuff like that and look at other ways. So it's good that she's open to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's in one hand you could say, well, someone's old, that they are going to be stuck in their ways and they can't change. But I think that in itself is a wrong mindset. People can change throughout their lives. It doesn't matter what age they are. I'm thinking about my own mum at the moment as well, and like the changes that she's going through right now. She's in her 70s. And she can make
Um,
those changes too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and it comes back to the point of like whatever you believe to be the truth is what will happen. So if I continue to believe, oh, she's old, she's not going to change, then that's literally what I'll see before me. But um, that's why I think power is also about being like open-minded to all different possibilities. Like anything is possible, like there's a version of her that's like the most spiritual, open-minded, like wild. And I feel like she has it in her. She probably does have it in her. It's just the society kind of, especially in India, like it's not like she got time to think about these kind of things because she was so busy trying to raise a family and all of that. But that's not to say that she can't now, and she will. Yeah, Jason, I'm busy, baby. Shut the door.
can you come say hi?
Jason, do you want to say hello?
Yeah.
He said he's I think he's shy.
You know what really made me
No
laugh?
worries.
Ria came back and she told me a story about my grandma. She said, "Yeah, my mom and my grandma had an argument, and my grandma was so upset. She said, I'm gonna stop. Like, obviously, she's very into like Sufism, so she's like, I'm gonna stop praying to them. I'm gonna follow Jesus now." What did she say, Ria? Tell the
She
story.
said, I'm going to become Christian. That's it. She said, my God didn't help me. Now I'm going to become Christian. And I
Who,
said,
who
that,
said that? Who said that? Your grandma?
Yeah.
yeah, she said, I just said to her, look, it doesn't matter what you believe in. You could literally worship a rock and, you could get something out of it. It's all about you. But again, it comes back to the externalization of your power,
Well, this is, and it's something that we are taught so much throughout society as well, that power is externalized. That power does come from it either comes from society, or it comes from government, or it comes from healthcare, or whatever. There's so many things outside of us that we're taught from a very early age, especially in our Western society, That's where power comes from. And religion, especially organized religion, with so much of its dogma, has a big part to play in this as well. That does create this externalized idea of power that needs to be worshipped as well, and to the degree that if you don't follow conforms, then you're going to burn in hell, or whatever tricks it is that they use to take that power away from people, from their internalized power. I think that's why like true, the way that I see it, like true spirituality comes from finding that power within yourself, and just opening up that path to your own internal truth. And when you do it, when you start doing that, it's so, as you guys well know, it's so liberating. And it's such a wonderful feeling of coming home as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It starts very, very early when you're born with parenting. It's like, oh, okay, you're a good child if you're obedient, if you give all your power away, if you listen to us, if you don't make too much noise, you don't take up too much space. And then that's reinforced conspicuously in school, where it's like you have to be obedient. You're a good kid if you're obedient. You go to the toilet when I tell you to. You eat when I tell you to. You talk when I tell you to, and how I tell you to. Um, and then you go to work, and then it's further reinforced, so you just think that this is the only way that there is. And then, for example, even if we look at social media, right, what is that? That's validation. I can only get validation outside of me. I can only be appreciated outside of me. And even like I was thinking about like the way I used to dress, and how I never used to really dress how I wanted, like now, because I was always thinking how I should dress, or like wanting like the validation of men. So it's like put like men centric, uh, and how I see that in young girls now, and like how they dress, and like certain websites, and how the kind of clothes that they sell. There's barely anything there, and the impact that it's having on younger women, because they're giving all their power away, because they feel like their power is in something like their body or their sexuality, or how they look. I mean, especially for women, there's this thing. It's like women who are models when they're younger, or like beauty queens, they really struggle when they get older, because they've associated their power with beauty. And it's something called power symbols. So a lot of different people you can associate that with money. Like for example, there was a story of this guy who was building his company, and then it was going really, really well. He was making millions, and then the stock market crashed, and then his company was about to crash. So when he was making money, he was always first in on his job. He was working crazy hours. He was socializing at the end of the day, like till the early morning, and he always had so much energy. As soon as the stock market crashed, and then his company had a downfall, he became ill, like really ill. He had like bowel problems, neck, back. He couldn't work as much. He didn't have enough energy, because he associated his power with money. So then as soon as the money disappeared, his power kind of disappeared. And I think we see that a lot, where people want security, but I don't really think there's anything. Security is kind of an illusion, I think.
Absolutely, it is. I mean, you said that word perfectly, illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And the money's the biggest illusion of them all, I think, and especially around wealth and the security that gives you. But to go back to your point about social media, we do see this so much more now. I mean, we saw it obviously through the 80s and the 90s, but now with social media, this idea that impacts a lot of young people. It's not just women; it's guys as well. On some executives' idea of what beauty should be, and a beauty standard that people should have to meet, and that's their power. That's their power, and that's how those executives and those people who are running these kind of these companies, that's where they're getting their power from, and they're giving it to other people online in the most negative of ways. And they are, and then we see so many kind of negative behaviors around that, and just in the way that people might want to make themselves physically look as well. And and you're talking about like models as well earlier on, and you see like as they get older, and you see this with actresses as well, they have to have plastic surgery done. They have to cling on to that youth. They have, like, that's where their power's coming from, on maintaining their external looks. And it's sad. It's very sad to see that. But yeah, it's something I can't remember who it was. I was talking to someone about this recently, about this idea of executives giving their idea of what beauty standards should be, and people have to go and meet that. And then it's propped up with things like reality TV shows and these bombardments of adverts that we're seeing as well. Yeah.
I was speaking to Ria earlier, and she was talking about her experience in India and about, the beauty standards that they have in India. And she was saying, I no longer, support Eurocentric ideas of beauty. And I said, they're not Eurocentric. I said, they're your ideas. Because when you internalize it, it becomes your thing, right? You've taken it and you've decided and you've given your power away. So in that moment, because I'm always worried about saying society and this, because I always want to remind myself that I'm one with everything. I am society. If I believe something, I am that thing, because there's such an interconnectedness with everything. So yeah, you take your power back then, because there's none of that blame, like, oh, it's outside of me. The standards made me do it. Social media, the movies.
But it's at the same time, it's so powerful
Mm,
over people's sense of identity, that
yeah.
it grips them, and especially when something can sell something. I mean, some people can wake up to it, and they can realize the truth, and some can't, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I wanted to talk as well about, I think, something about you said a bit earlier on, Ria. When we were talking about the kind of when we were talking more about victim mentality and through trauma. Interested to know what your guys' thoughts are on the most horrific of traumas that people would go through. Let's say, we focus on Yemen or Gaza, where there's wars happening at the moment, and when you have a child, who doesn't understand these concepts like we do, who are suffering with the worst kind of traumas that you could imagine. What's your take on that? What do you think because that's not them manifesting their reality. That's not them creating it for themselves. Just interested to know what you guys would think around that.
Yeah, so I think it's something that used to plague me for a very long time. When I was studying my degree in history, we were talking about like colonization, and for the first time in my life I learned like the true history of the colonial past, especially that of India. And it would really, like, learning about all the horrible, like even slavery, like all the horrible things that mankind has done to one another. um it plagued me, and it made me, it really brought my like vibration down. And I know that Prick like can confirm this, I spent a lot of time like in a very dark place, and I couldn't really get my head around like why, if there's God, that there would be so much trauma and so much pain and so much suffering and so much like evilness. But the way I see it now is that everything must exist, good and bad. Like there is polarity. And like, of course we don't want to think of like little innocent children being abused and having no power, but everything is about contrast, right? In life, God wants to, like, we are God wanting to experience everything. And that means that as much as you want to experience the most utmost joy, the higher you go, the lower you must be able to feel like the deepest, darkest trauma. And whilst it's not, it's very uncomfortable to witness that, observe that, and of course experience that, I feel like it's kind of necessary. And it's almost kind of, it's not evil in the sense that you're kind of doing that to yourself. So I'm not saying little children are well, like, in consciously wanting to abuse themselves, but we are God separated into so many different infinite pieces, and God wants to experience many different perspectives of itself, which means that it wants to experience being, I guess, the victim, and also being the abuser. Not because it's, yeah, like, God wants to experience everything, whether it's good or bad, and nothing is good or bad. I know that that can be kind of controversial to say, but for example, murder in one country, like murder in one situation, like me going out and aimlessly shooting people may be considered bad, but then me going in the army may be considered good. Um,
No,
yeah,
you're right. You're right. When you say we are the divine experiencing itself in so many different ways, you're right. And I think sometimes I have to remind myself of that as well. To come back to that sort of way of thinking. Yeah, I think it's just tough though as well, isn't it? Because we still do have emotions. We still do see things that do upset us, and sometimes we still do think from our emotions a little bit.
yeah, and that's just that's the love in us, and everything is love. And it's all about contrast. Like when Priya was talking about empathy, and like one of the creators that was talking about empathy in that manner, she said that if you see somebody that's homeless, rather than feeling like loads of sympathy for them and bringing yourself down to their level, which I did for a very long time. Like I would see someone homeless and I would feel so shit in myself and think, God, I just wish that I was more successful, that I could just buy you a house, or I could do this for you. But that wasn't helping me, and it wasn't helping that person, and essentially that person is me. It's just that God is showing me a contrast of like, okay, this is the other side of existence that exists. Like that person is a reflection of me with a lack mindset, maybe somebody that's externalized their power, that doesn't understand that they do have the power. Now, like when I see a homeless person, I feel love for them, but I don't feel sympathy as such. As I'm also think you have the power within you to completely change your life, and you can. And I feel like when I change my perspective to that, then I maintain the power that I have and increase it, if anything, because I'm like, okay, well, if they're homeless and they have the ability to change their life, I also have that. So do you get what I mean? It kind of like grounds you, that contrast, and brings you back to who you are.
In fact, you were talking about this quite recently, Priya, on one of your lives about having empathy essentially with a sense of detachment. I don't think you used the term detachment, but you can still have that empathy without absorbing that person's the state that person is in. You can just maintain that center line still, and still have empathy for a person, or for people.
It's emotional containment, people who are powerful, they can contain their energy, they don't leak it. And when you feel sympathy or too much like empathy, which is empathy, the way in which I'm talking about is emotional fusion. You become one with their energy, with their vibration, and then you bring yourself down. Then you're losing your energy, you're not really containing it, you're losing your power. But if you stay grounded in your own energy and you understand that this isn't the truth. So with this whole like the question that you asked about seeing kids in Yemen and Gaza, the way that I think about it is, don't see them as kids. And I get that can sound really cold, but they're souls. We're all souls, and I believe we chose our path. And like when I've read books about reincarnation and past life regression, you know what they always say? They always say, uh, like for example, Dolores Cannon, she talks about how people have experienced loads of difficult lifetimes. You've been in wars, you've been in medieval times, you've lost your husband, your kids, you've drowned, we've all experienced that to some extent. So it's just kind of like it's because this isn't the be all end all. It's like you have this life and then it's cool, and then it's the next life and the next life. So you chose it, they didn't create it maybe there consciously, because no one would want to create that. But if we can kind of zoom out and look at it from a higher perspective, the soul chose it to see something like we have in the past. And it's all for the greater good. Like, well, it's all experience, right? Like Ria said, God just wants to experience everything. God wants to be the murderer, the murdered. So I don't know if you know, but my mom brought the book on Bulleh Shaji. I know we spoke about that in one of the Satsangs, and it's the best book ever. Oh my God. So Ria's been reading it as well. And Bulleh Shaji, he talks about God being like a playful child. God wants to do this, and she wants to do this, and he, like he says he, but it's she, whatever. He wants to do this, he wants to be the murderer, and he wants to be this, and he's everywhere, and he's like a thief just hiding. He's like there, but he's not really there. And I just loved it. I thought it was so beautiful, and it's play. It's life is a leela. You know, when they say it's a leela, it's not a theatre play. Like that's why I used to think like a theatre play, but a play like children, where it's like, okay, fine, you be doctors and I'll be the nurse, and you be the police officer and I'll be the criminal. It's like that, you know. It's just like a play. We mustn't take it so seriously. And like what's his name? The guy that I always talk about, the one who says just don't do anything, don't get involved with the world. He said, yeah, like
Well, Adams.
yeah, like don't go too far out in the world. Don't want world peace. Just your inner world is the only real thing. So bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. You know it's not the truth. God is the only truth, you know? So that
Oh,
helps
Yeah.
me.
sorry, I got excited. I wanted to add something there. So it basically reminded me of the book Existential Kink.
Mhm.
So it goes, she works on Dr. Carolyn. She adds on to Jung's idea of anything that remains unconscious ends up running your life. So she talks about this idea of how everything in our life happens because we manifest it. So like how the manifestation community is so focused on conscious manifesting of like, oh, you consciously want this and you want a big house and you want cars and you want this. But seldom is any attention given to the unconscious, and the unconscious is actually like the feminine, like the larger part of you that has so much more power. It's like the part of you that you're literally not even consciously aware of. And she talks about how you have so many different desires in that part, like how we're kinky, we like pain, we like to be, like we like to be traumatized, we like to be victimized, we enjoy it. And it's weird for the conscious mind to think that, because society and we're taught to be like, oh, you should want to be happy, you should want to be helpful and generous and kind and loving. But there's the other part of us. It's like the shadow, right? We're trying to repress the shadow of that has dark desires, that does want to hurt people, that does get fun out of like stealing and hurting and going, murdering people. And it's not to say that that part of you is bad. It's just that that part of you is still holy, because nothing is unholy. Like swearing, murder, rape, like we think it's, like it's bad, but everything is God, and God wants to be all the parts, like Priya said. Like if I was given the choice of like, yeah, you don't have to be pure light and love anymore. You don't have to be bored in perfection. You can actually go out and you can play, you can be anything you want. Of course I'd want to be the cop and the robber at the same time. I want to do it all, and here we are. We're doing it all, aren't we?
Yeah, I think I need to get you to speak to my kids. Try and try and share this some of this wisdom with them. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think we do have to remind ourselves of that sometimes. And as you were talking as well, I was just thinking that even when there's the, people who we would see as the worst, the murderers, the rapists, that we would objectively see as the worst, they still have to be treated with an element of compassion as well. I think if we do want to, for want of a better term, fix the world or make the world a better place, then the way to do that is through compassion, and we can only have that through the most, sharing compassion with the most extreme of behaviors, like you were just saying.
Yeah. I like to think of it as like the devoted lover. For example, I read this book called No Bad Parts, and it talks about how all parts of like inside of us, we have so many different parts to us, so many different roles and characters that we play. For example, addiction, right? Like so many people think, oh, like addicts, like they're so bad and it's so stigmatized. And people who are addicts, like they resent that they're so addicted to something, and they hate parts of themselves that want to smoke, that want to drink, that want to go and do that thing. But they don't realize that they have that tendency because there is a part of them that's their devoted lover. So say for example, someone's an alcoholic. If they weren't drinking alcohol every single day, like their body essentially created a defense mechanism from a young age, and they thought, okay, well, to protect you, we're going to drink alcohol so that you don't go and do X, Y, and Z. So some people are alcoholics because if they're not drinking every day and like consoling themselves in that manner, then they would have just killed themselves, right? They would have literally just been like, I can't take it, I'm just going to die. So like even the things that we think are bad, like the bad parts of us, they're not even bad. It's all just love at the end of the day. And it's like love is working through us in so many different forms and ways that we can't even quite understand, but it's all for our benefit. Even if we can't see it at that moment, it is, it's to protect us and to save us from ourselves sometimes and things. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's very much. Oh, sorry, Sunny, did you say something?
No,
Oh, okay.
no,
I think
it's
that
good.
that's very much the kind of Carl Jung school of thought as well, isn't it? Of loving every aspect of yourself and showing compassion for yourself, and thinking about trauma as well. When I was learning to deal with my own trauma, one of the things I learned to do was to love that. That inner child or something, essentially that had been traumatized, and showing that compassion and then that love to that inner child. Like you said, Rhea, it's really about uh, just loving every part of yourself. Because if you learn to separate something and say, I don't want this part, that's just going to create it's going to create a division within yourself, which creates more trauma. I think
Yeah.
you understand what I mean when I say that.
Yeah, it's that you want to, what does Koyan say? Is it individualization or something? It's like the integration of the shadow and the
Hmm.
persona. And it reminds me of like last year, I went through a heartbreak, right? And at the time, I was reading Existential Kink. So I was really aware of the fact that I have unconscious desires. And because I experienced the heartbreak, I thought, okay, well, maybe there's a kinky part of me that actually likes having my heart broken. So I remember I would go to the park and I would sit there and I would cry. And then even though I was crying, I would start laughing because I just thought it's so weird. Like I'm in so much pain and my heart hurts so much. But in a weird way, I kind of like being sad. I like crying in the park. I like sitting there. I like listening to sad music and writing sad poetry and being sad real. Like I enjoy this emotion that most people say is so negative and you shouldn't feel and you should repress and hide and deny. But like once I started accepting like this sad Rhea and this angry Rhea, and I started loving those parts of me, I got over that heartbreak so much faster, and I learned so much more from that heartbreak than I ever did before from any experience I've ever had of heartbreak or pain. It was revolutionary. It was life changing. I thought this is it. Like, then I got to the point where I thought, okay, to be untouchable, like to have pure power is to be able to create art out of everything that happens to you, like your deepest, darkest traumas. Why do you have it? So you can create paintings and music and poetry and write and, like find your purpose in that way. So in that way, I'm like, I'm grateful for my trauma. I'm grateful for everything bad that happened to me because I did it to myself and I did it so that I could create even more and become even more like unfold even more into what I'm meant to be in life. And it's a blessing.
It is. In fact, there's two things that I'll say. The first is that when you said you're grateful for your trauma, I've said exactly the same words to Priya on previous on previous satsangs that we've done, and because it's a shake, it's something that shakes you, and if you can learn from it, if you can hear it like you did, then you let go of that victim mentality, and then you do become more peaceful, you become more grounded, you find your true self more. But then there's people who can't let go of it. There's people, and this is the second point I wanted to make that Priya and I have discussed before. There's parts of people that want to be depressed. There's parts of people that want to be traumatized. People find it so hard to admit that to themselves. And they said, no, of course not. There's nothing part of me that wants to be depressed. What a ridiculous thing to say. But when
Yeah.
they actually really own up to that real truth, and they start realizing that's when you can start having that liberation and letting those things go. And I know that I don't obviously know Sunny's circumstance, but I know the three of us can talk about that because it's something that we've all been through. I've heard you both speak, and it's something that is truth. Yeah.
We're all just really kinky, even outside the bedroom.
I've got to read this book.
Onyx kinky.
I got to read this book.
You do. Honestly, please read it. It's mind-blowing, life-changing, just chef's kiss.
Like, why do we watch horror movies? Why do we watch things where there's lots of violence. Why do we love video games with violence? I know my brother's obsessed with it, and I just couldn't get it, but now I get it. It's just a play, you know. It's like how we treat ourselves on the micro level, like where Rhea was talking about accepting every part of herself, like sad Rhea, angry Rhea. Well, that's kind of reflected outside where we can accept someone else who is just us, who's a murderer, who's a rapist, who's doing this or who's manipulating people, because it's just like the wholeness we can find within ourselves, we can allow that to spread outwards. For example, let's say there's someone who's a murderer, right? They live down your street. If you treat them differently, well, you're doing exactly what they did because you're like, okay, this person is a murderer. Let me treat them differently. I'm not going to be nice to them. They don't deserve it. Okay, well, what was this like? What was the mindset of the murderer? Oh, maybe I'm going to murder this person because I don't agree with them. I don't like them. You see, so you kind of have the same mindset as the person you're denying. And that person is just an extension of you because everything is an extension of you. In the book, one, he says we're an interconnected organism. You know, every part is affecting every other part. So the way that we are, like the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. So the way we treat ourselves, can we love us on our good days and our bad days, and just be authentic in that. That shows how much you can accept other people and wider society, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's to the same point that we were talking about earlier on. It comes about compassion, doesn't it? And sharing compassion with everybody.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think, you know, like when I think, as you were talking as well, I was thinking about spiritual gurus who I've listened to and the way that they are able to maintain that power. And they would absolutely, like you were talking about, if there was the worst people in society, whether they're the murderers or the, you know, the rapists or whoever, they would still have that level of compassion and thought towards them, exactly as you were just saying, Priya.
Yeah, there was actually, it's a great example. There was a guru that I would listen about, and people were talking about him. So he was very, very like enlightened. Basically, we're all God, but like truly like embodying it all the time and had loads of superpowers. And they would talk about how, you know, even if there was like an alcoholic that would come up to the Babaji, he would never shoo them away or anything. And you can just truly see like that's a truly enlightened being, right? Well, like when you have compassion for everything, because there's oneness and you embody that oneness. You're like, that's just me, and I understand it. And I think everybody is just doing the best that they can with what they know.
Do you
That's
remember and have you read The True Name, Ria? Or shows The True Name? Priya, do you remember in there that he was talking about when there are people who try to externalize that they're spiritual, and then there's people who try to you know, but then there's people who do the kind of the worst things in life, and he was finding that comparison that somebody might be in you know, a church or a temple, and they might externally pretend to be praying, but but inside they're thinking about other things, you know, inside their head they're thinking about their shopping that they've got to do later on, or whatever it is. And that kind of yeah, I think that's again, it's coming back to internalization, how people actually sit in, you know, feel within the inside. They could externally be presenting something, and they could externally be presenting themselves to be spiritual or, you know, religious or godly or whatever it is. But then there's people who externalize being victims or being an addict or something like that as well. So I think, yeah, I think my point is that it's a lot of it is around perception as well and how people want to be shown and perceived.
it's true. It's they call it Pakundi, right? It's someone who's showing like, oh, look at me, I'm like this and I'm like this and I'm like I don't think I've ever shared this, but I was at the Gurdwara, right? And so this prashad, so they hand out prashad. It's like a sweet kind of dessert that they hand out in the Gurdwara. So you go and you pray, and then you go take some prashad, and everybody loves prashad. So this seva, so anybody can go sit there and do this seva. And there's this lady that usually sits there. And one morning I went really early and they asked me to sit there and I sat there. And then I did this for, and she usually sits there. So I did this for like 2 days. And then the second day she came and she was like, okay, I'm sitting here now. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And then another day I went and then she came and she just stood there and she's just waiting for me. She's just staring at me and I said, what? And she's like, can you move? Like, I want to sit here. And I said, I'm not moving. And then she's like, she started having a go at me. She's like, you shouldn't even be sitting here. You haven't taken Amrit. Like you haven't, you don't, you know, you paint your you paint your nails. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be allowed to do seva. And I was just looking at her and she's like, I've done seva for 10 years. And I remember looking at her thinking, oh my God, bless you. You don't even like you sit here, but you don't even know what Sikhism is teaching you. What about compassion? What about it's what's on the inside? You know, that's a true Sikh, someone who understands what like compassion and dare and bravery and all these things are. You're wearing a uniform and you're going around telling other people that you're not Sikh enough. You don't wear a uniform, you know? It was really interesting and she went around telling everybody like she shouldn't be sitting there, she shouldn't be yeah, so like the whole
Oh, so it wasn't just you she told then. She told other people as well then.
complaining about me to everybody going around she shouldn't be doing it, how she's wearing nail varnish, she should take Amrit, and everybody was just like what flabbergasted because there are many people who go there who do say that every single day who don't have such an attitude, right? Who were just like, well, we don't do it, should we not do it either? Like we haven't taken Amrit. But yeah, it's interesting because
I
people
wonder how she really feels on the inside though, that lady. I wonder what she's actually really experiencing herself, because it doesn't, you know, from what the limited knowledge I have on Sikhi, it doesn't sound very Sikh like.
It's not. She will, to be honest, a few like prior to that, she had shared a lot about her life, and it was very like this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. My parents don't like me, husband left me, my children don't talk to me. So it was very like a victim kind of mentality. So I can see why, because I think her sense of power came from sitting there and and I just took all her power away, and now she needs something to kind of come at me with. I mean, even with the seva thing, I said seva is something between you and God, okay? You don't go around with ego because ego is the thing they tell you to kill in Sikhism. You don't go around with ego, I did seva 10 years, it beats the whole point of it. It's supposed to be selfless, not a badge that you wear, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's prevalent though, isn't it? Throughout religion. I think my sort of thinking of it as well is that's where religion and spirituality almost get separated. You know, there's people who go around with the staff saying, "Yeah, I'm religious, I'm godly," and then there's the ones who are well centered and who do have that inner sense of power, as we were talking about earlier on that inner sense of truth. Uh,
It reminds
uh,
me of that meme. It's like a separated into two, and it starts off with the starter spirituality pack, and it's got like incense and crystals and tarot and everything on there. And then the second image is like just I don't know, someone holding a cup of tea and a cigarette, and this is like what true spirituality looks like. And I was like, this is so powerful because we always think that it's like externalizing your power again, isn't it? Oh, I'm important and I have power because I'm sitting in this, this like religious position and I feel like I'm better than other people. When religion itself is meant to dissolve the ego. And I feel like this is why my heart is always so drawn to Sufism because like before I like my mom always like had this thing of like she really liked Islam and it was like kind of like forcing it upon us, and I really thought, okay, my mom, whatever she says is right, didn't really use my discernment, and I thought, okay, I need to be a Muslim. But then when I thought about being a Muslim, I thought, well, I'm doing everything a good Muslim isn't meant to do. So then I just thought, oh my God, God hates me. And I felt like that for a long time. And then I got depressed and I was manifesting more problems and more issues. And I felt like a victim. When I learned about the power of the mind, then I realized, oh, wow, I'm creating these circumstances. Like the power is actually inside me. There is no God outside of me that hates me. It's just me hating me. And then now coming to my journey of like really kind of delving more into Sufism, and Sufism is about less about the mind and the ego and more about loving God from the heart and like being God and feeling God. And that's like why people like Bulleh Shahji and Rumi and all of these Sufi writers really speak to my soul. And, like I feel such a sense of peace because I feel like I don't have to be this religious, like spiritual figure of like, yeah, I do this many times a day. I'm just being me. And even something as simple as like sipping tea or like stroking my cat or just breathing can be something that's connects me to God that kind of like helps dissolve even something as beautiful as dancing, like after my heartbreak, I started dancing. And when I danced, I forgot who I was and I became one with everything. And that's what people like Sufi poets, like that's what Bulleh Shahji experienced, when he found his beloved and then he found God through love, through the heart, and then he started dancing. He would dance in the streets and people would mock him, they would ridicule him, like his own family, because he was from a high caste, and they would be like, oh my God, you're praying to the lowest caste, like you've made this man who's of the lowest caste, he's a gardener, you're like a distinguished scholar, like how are you bowing down to him, how you worshiping him and thinking of him in such high esteem? And he didn't care because the love that he had opened him up. Like that was ishq, ishq is like it's there's different layers of love. Like in English we have love, but in Punjabi we have pyar, which is like pyar is what the body does. It's like, oh, I love my family, I love my partner. Then you have mohabbat, and then you have ishq. Ishq is like when you become like your ego is dismantled. You're not just loving, you literally become love. And I feel like I experienced that when I had my heartbreak because I literally allowed myself to feel what I was meant to feel, like the pain, and I sat with it and I loved myself through it. And then when I would dance, it's like my body would just move by itself, and I would literally feel like my boundaries dissolving, and it's like I could feel like every cell vibrating, but not just in my body, but in the whole world. And that's when I realized, like, wow, like I finally understand what people like Rumi and Bulleh Shahji and all of these people experienced when they found God through the heart rather than through the mind. And it's not like I go around thinking, oh my God, like I'm more spiritual than you and I found God, because everyone is me. Like after my heartbreak, I could have easily been like, oh, I hate everyone and I'm gonna shut my heart and I'm never gonna love again. But I started seeing the guy, like the person that I loved, I started seeing my beloved everywhere, in everyone and everything. And it's like love was just pouring out of me rather than like being blocked. And yeah, and I'm like, I don't mind if I get my heart broken again. Like I will love as many times as I can, because that's what we're here for. And even if my heart breaks, because Rumi even said, like every time your heart breaks, the wound is where the light enters you. So rather than letting heartbreak kind of like close off your heart, it just breaks it open so you love even more. And I think that's what life's about. Just love, loving love.
I love that. It's let the light enter you through the womb. So that was Rumi that said that.
Yeah, he said, sorry, the wound, like, yeah.
Yeah, because when you were talking about Sufism as well, that's because at the moment I'm learning about the Bhagavad Gita. I'm doing a Bhagavad Gita course, and part of that is learning about Bhakti Yoga, and that sounds very, very similar, which is it's centered around love. It's love in the highest form and connection to the divine through love. And they talk about yoga as well, and how yoga is the Atman, the soul's connection with the ultimate divine, and with bhakti, that connection is through love. It sounds very similar what you were just talking about. It's really cool.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, that's a wonderful story, right?
Thank you.
Ria, you said something interesting. You said that religion is meant to make you know that or something, or like you're meant to be like that if you're religious. The thing is, religion is the path, right? It's kind of like I described it before to Greg. It's like a plane. Let's say you want to get to, like the destination is India, you get on the plane and then the destination in this situation would be God slash yourself. So you get on the plane, which is the religion. It's like, okay, we're gonna take you there. It takes you there, and you're meant to get off. You're not meant to stay on the plane. You're not meant to hug the plane. I am now the plane. I want to be the plane. I want to be called the planeoid or whatever. You're meant to get off the plane because you reach your destination. But what a lot of people do is they don't listen to what the religion is telling them. Like, for example,
Hmm.
Sikhism. I mean, it was never meant to be a religion. It's a spiritual path. It talks about oneness. It talks about how there's a light within everybody and you are that light, and about dismantling the ego and about love and the heart. It talks about all these things. But what people have done is they've taken from that, okay, they've made it their identity. I'm now a Sikh. Now I'm going to take the Amrit. Now I'm going to wear the uniform, and now I'm going to patrol and control. And should you eat meat? Should you not? But if you really look at what's written, it's not even any of that, but people don't take the knowledge and apply it. It's meant to go from gyan to dhyan, right? So gyan, knowledge, to dhyan, you're observing it, you're embodying it. And I think that's the issue. So I think religion wouldn't be such a problem if people really understood what it's about. It's the affairs of the heart at the end of the day. If a religion isn't making you feel calmer, more loving, more compassionate, more present, then why are you there? Like my mom, she'd get really stressed out and she'd worry all the time. And I'd say to her, why, like, you're so into your God, but why? What are you getting from it? I don't see any change in you. I want to see peace. I want to see trust. That's where your true power comes from. Like, you understand that even if your God is externalized, you should have a semblance of kind of trust. Maybe it's because the God is externalized and you don't understand that God is within you, that you don't have that. But yeah, self-trust, calmness, understanding that, equanimity, it's fine. It goes shits up, cool. It doesn't go shits up, it's fine. It's like desire, for example. I learned that maybe desire is us telling God, you're doing it wrong. No, 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 no. It's not meant to go this way. I wanted it like this, and I want it like this, and I want it like this, and I want it by this date. Okay? You're doing it wrong. You don't know any better. I know better. I know what I should get.
The
Because
ego.
it's the ego, because what
Yeah.
you want from the desire is the feeling of that thing, and it's the expansion. Like, for example, with Ria, with her heartbreak, what she experienced was expansion. You allowed yourself to just open up, to accept it, to open your arms and to say, I'm going to take it all. I'm going to sit with it, rather than, God, you
Mhm.
shouldn't have done this. I did not desire this.
Mhm. Yeah, like thinking God hates me, or like,
Yeah.
which is what I used to think in the past. And
Mhm.
look how much that served me. That only, the universe only kind of reflects back to you, like what you feel, but magnified. And when I opened up my heart and I was like, you know what, anything can happen. I'm not gonna stop myself from like love. I'm not gonna block myself off from that. I experienced love in so many different ways. And like I literally, because I was writing in my book and I was talking about love and how pyar, ishq and mohabbat, like the different kind of levels, if you will. And I realized that when I went through my heartbreak, I experienced that. First it was like, oh, I loved him just for how he made me feel. Then it was like, oh, I loved him because of, like I just loved him, and I want, it's like possession, like wanting to be with them. And then later it kind of became like, oh, I love him, but I don't need him. I don't even need him, because it was kind of like annihilation, it's like fana. Like I felt like my heart was broken open, and I just became one with everything. Like I just became everything. I became the darkness, the pain, the anger, the love, the need, the longing. And for example, things like longing and yearning, like we always put that to the shadow, like, oh, it's so bad to yearn and long. And like I used to think these are bad things, like, oh, limerence is really bad. But I watched a TikTok, and this witch was talking about how longing and yearning is so beautiful, and like we should accept it. Whatever rises up, we should accept. So when I broke up with him and my heart was broken, I longed and yearned for so long, but I allowed myself to do it. And when I did do it, I created some of the most beautiful art. Like I started writing a book, I started writing poetry, I started sharing it with people. I found my purpose. I felt so like full of life and love and energy when I did these things. And it made me realize that I used to think whenever bad things happen, like a child, like, oh my God, God hates me, my parents hate me, it's their fault, it's their fault. But when I just accepted it, I was like, wow, like anything could happen and I feel untouchable. I feel like who I'm meant to be, like I am God and anything could happen to God and I could still be okay because I'm creating it and I choose what I like. Anything could happen, right? I could watch a movie, Priya could watch a movie, and I could come out thinking, oh my God, it was amazing. I feel so inspired. Priya could come out thinking, oh my God, I'm traumatized, emotional damage. It's your perception of what you think is true. So if you can control your mind and think, okay, well, this bad thing happened, but this is going to be the best thing. This is going to be my breakthrough. And it was my breakthrough, I thought I'm so glad. Like for a long time I resented him for like not loving me in the way I wanted to, but then now I'm like he was my devoted lover. He needed to hurt me so that I could become who I was meant to be, so I could unfold and be here today talking about this with you guys. It was all needed.
Sorry, my son's just coming on. Yeah, but it's because you allowed yourself, didn't you? You said that you said you said to yourself, I'm going to allow this, but that in itself is a massive step for a lot of people to do. To just to say to themselves, I'm going to allow this. I'm going to be able to sit with it. I'm going to be able to work through it. A lot of the time people get stuck in denial. You have to excuse the shouting. It's my son.
It's okay. It's
Willingness.
like the flow of life, isn't it? Sorry, Priya, you were saying?
Oh, I was just gonna say it's the willingness. So in the book I was reading Anatomy of Spirit, she's a medical intuitive. So she said that there's active power and there's passive power. So for example, when we look at something like conventional medicine, right, Western medicine, what we do is it's very passive power. Doctor, it's your responsibility to make me feel good. Those drugs better do something to me, I better be okay. So it's like there's no self-responsibility. I'm not going to look at myself. I may not even have a willingness to want to heal myself. But when you look at different kind of modalities of healing, like holistic or like therapy, you have to have a willingness. So not everybody has the willingness to want to like change. It has to come from within you. You can't just rely on something outside of you to make the change. You know? I think, yeah.
Yeah, it does, but that's a lot of what of the religious teachings at their core. They point to it, don't they? They're just signposts, like we've discussed before. They're signposts that point you into the right direction. And if you actually listen to them as signs to find that truth within yourself, as opposed to getting stuck with the words, or like your example, Priya, getting stuck on the aeroplane, hanging onto the aeroplane, then if you can actually follow the pathway to it to find it within yourself, that's when you find that power, and that's when it's not externalized to things like having to go to the doctor and putting all your power on the doctor to make you better. I'm a firm believer in if you're unwell, and then it's going to become through self-belief to make yourself better. There's certain like remedies and things that I don't particularly believe in. I think a lot of the time they're placebos. And I think a lot of the time the actual power itself is coming from within yourself. And if it takes that placebo to say, well, now I've got the power, and it brings it out yourself, then so be it.
Fix you. I mean, they used to do that a lot actually in medicine, in older medicine. They would just tell someone, oh, look, this pill, it's going to work. It's really, really good. We're just testing it. And the person would take it and they'd be better. And then they would give someone a pill and say, oh, maybe it doesn't work. And that person would get unwell. But it's just like a sugar pill. So it's always you, but maybe it's like some people work well with oh, it's this thing that's making you better. But I think people should really think about the placebo effect more. Like it is you.
They still do it, don't they? In clinical trials, but placebos are still given in clinical trials because they know of that power and they know of the effect of it.
I think it's also understanding that we're energy first, right? There are different dimensions. So it's energy and then it's matter. So yeah, physically you may be unwell, but that started off because of something mentally that was happening. There's something within you mentally, emotionally that is causing that thing. And when you can kind of explore why that may be happening, then you can heal it. Like there's this story about this lady who went and she had so many autoimmune diseases. I can't even name them. I couldn't even read them properly because they were so complicated. But she would go to the doctor, and he recommended loads of different treatments, and she wasn't getting well. And the doctor is a person who wrote the book. He said, not once did I ask her, like, what's going on, how's your life. And one day he called her in for an hour and he said, how are you, like, tell me about you, like, what's been going on. And she revealed that when she was very young, she was in a foster care home, and she had to protect her sisters because there was a lot of abuse in the house. So she could never say no, she could never set boundaries. She had all this trauma that she'd never really shared with anybody, and that led to her having all these diseases. So it's not just like randomly or genetically you got these diseases. It's something triggered it, something within you that is unwell that's like triggering these things. And I think people don't really look at that at times, like when they get unwell. It's like they don't understand it's their body's sign, like way of saying, look, this is up, you need to change this job isn't good for you, this relationship isn't good for you, this, I don't know, house isn't good for you. They don't take it. They're like, oh right, okay, what drug can I take now? Let me numb the shit out of this.
Yeah, and it's rampant throughout society as well, isn't it? With people being like that, and it does manifest. It manifests itself in different ways. And I thinking about myself, like that, I went through a period of just being constantly dizzy. Just like getting checked for vertigo and all this kind of stuff. But it was just like this manifestation of something deeper going on inside, and it's because I hadn't had that period yet, like Ria was talking about, of having that self-acceptance and just sitting with it and allowing it. There's just that denial pushing it away, and not allowing yourself to be, not loving that part of it. Because when that happens, that's when you really start to heal.
And you know what? This brings me to the point of like dancing again. The reason why dancing was so healing is because energy wants to move, right? And I had all this like heavy, dark, negative, like painful energy inside me. But when I danced, it was like I was moving it out, right? And it takes me to like people who are depressed. The reason why people get depressed is because they have a problem, but they don't do anything about it. They're not solution oriented. They're more like problem focused. So that's what I was like. I can totally relate. When I was depressed, I would think this is wrong, and this is wrong. But I would never think, okay, well, what can I actually do to tackle that? And because I wasn't moving that energy, that pain, that resentment, that anger through me, through a solution, through writing, through creating, through taking action, it just becomes like clogged in the body, which is why then we get all these like autoimmune diseases and mental health problems. But and it's just important like to move, and the song keeps coming in my head: row 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 your boat gently down the stream. Like merrily merrily life is but a dream. And it's so true. Like you just have to flow with the current of life, because that's like feminine energy. It just wants to flow, it wants to move. Whatever happens, it will just accept, and it will feel, and it will just let it go over. And once I did that with my heartbreak, I was like, oh my God, I must do this with everything. Because if things can just come to me, I can remain emotionally neutral, or allow myself to feel it, then it will just flow like water going over me. And I'll be even stronger and smarter and healthier and more powerful. And if people started doing that, my God, they would not have to go to the doctor. They would just have to put some like music on, shake it out, and be good as new, and save money and getting even more diseases at that.
Uh, Dancing doesn't sell pills, though.
Yeah, it's true, isn't
So
it?
this
Like,
this what is this
yeah,
knowledge isn't
yeah,
shared. And so you're writing a book at the moment, aren't you?
yes, yeah,
Are you writing about this in your book?
yeah. Everything we spoke about, yeah, it's gonna be in the book.
Okay, great.
Mm,
Right. Yeah, it's liberation that you were talking about. That's liberation that you've been through, isn't it?
hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it is. Definitely is.
They say
Right.
bliss is in the flow.
Guys,
And
sorry to interrupt, but I gotta go.
okay,
The person I've come to is just the ad. Someone said, "Lovely to meet you. You'll be lovely," and I'll catch up soon.
thank you for
Right?
coming.
Okay.
Sunny, nice to
Bye,
meet you, mate.
Sunny.
Take care.
Take
Bye
care,
bye.
mate. Bye bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I was gonna say flow, bliss is in the flow, not in the having. So we usually think that if I have this thing, then I'll really like it, I'll really enjoy it, I'll be really happy. But it's actually more of the journey. Like for example, let's say there's a kid and the kid gets some pocket money, or the kid like drops off newspaper, and he wants these really nice shoes, and he's like every day he wakes up and he's working and putting the newspaper out, and finally he gets the new shoes. It's because the journey there was so exciting. It's not really the thing itself. It's just like the journey, the flow, and it's energy, right? We have to be so aware of energetics. We are energy, everything is energy, and it just constantly wants to flow. Even like with emotions, allow them to flow. With creativity, allow it to flow within you and out of you and in you and out of you. Because if we look at life, it's always creating. New planets are being made, space is getting bigger, animals are being born, people are being born, people are dying. It's kind of just going with the flow of it, really.
You know, oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
go on, Ray. You go ahead.
Sorry, just a quick one in there. It's funny because it reminded me of this poem that I wrote about how like when I had like I was dancing and then I was having this experience of like being one with everything. It I had this like little channel, like this download of how life itself is a dance. It's like a dance of like planets and atoms and energy and relationships and people and circumstances and yeah, you were saying, Greg.
Um, Let me ask you a quick, because you just said about download then, and
Mhm.
in the book that I've been reading, she talks about downloads. What is that? What is, enlighten me with this. What is meant by this term download? Is that just like a feeling of knowledge? That's my kind of understanding of it. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, so you know what? I'm the same as you. I've read it so many times and it would elude me. Like, what does it mean to have a download? And I feel like I kind of intuitively, like after I danced, I download is almost like this random kind of realization. Like, say you do something and then you have this thought, this like piece of like information almost. Like I was dancing and then when I stopped dancing, I thought everything in life is a dance, right? And I can't like it kind of felt like it was like a realization, like a piece of wisdom that came outside from me, outside of me. And I'm not sure if this is what other people think as as of a download, but I feel like it could be something like that. Like it's kind of like this like realization or like a random thought where you're like, oh, like you just received information that's like deep and meaningful.
I thought that's probably what it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just a realization without reading it from, an external source necessarily. You just feel it and
Yeah.
understand it. Yeah, oh, cool.
Mhm.
Kind of like what I feel like Nikola Tesla, like he said that it wasn't coming through him, but things were being downloaded into him. I feel like it was almost like channeling because nothing really comes out of us. I feel like we're just a vessel, right? We're just an empty vessel, and things are coming through us all the time. So it's like information that you're just receiving, and like there's a morphic field that they talk about with like the collective consciousness, where ideas, like for example, Michael Jackson. I think it was with Thriller, he had the idea for Thriller at like 3 a.m. and he called his manager or his producer and he said, "We need to go to the studio and record this now." And he's like, "Can it wait till the morning?" And he said, "No, because Prince will have it recorded." So it's like receiving, I mean, it could be different with you, like more outside of the collective consciousness. But yeah, there's like a morphic field around you where the thoughts of everybody are just like floating around, all the geniuses, everybody, and then he just received it, and like everybody can kind of receive it, and it's like about like taking action on it there and then rather than like I'll do it later kind of thing.
Well, that's when, and going back to your point earlier on as well. I know we're at time, so I'll be quick, but it's the joy in actually doing something as well, and not for the not for the end result, not for something that's I'm doing this for a certain reason. It's just about enjoying that moment, and that's something because Ria, I make music, and that's something that I've been trying to do kind of recently as well. Like whenever I used to make music before, I always had this end goal in mind, but now when I do it, I'm just enjoying it for the moment, and just enjoying just making it, and whatever comes out will come out.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's something good.
Just like the
Yeah,
doing
Yeah.
rather than there being a specific kind of reward.
It's like being
yeah.
present, isn't it? Like when you're present, then you're not like in the future, the mind projected future of the past. You're just there in the moment. And then when you're there in the moment, you're like this open beacon for like information to come through. And that's when I feel like people like get downloads and they're like, oh, you'll probably find that like when you make music and you're not doing it with the end goal, you're just doing it for the fun of it, you're going to receive so many downloads and so many cool ideas that will come and float in your mind. And if you spot it and then you hold on to it and you take it as inspiration and then you manifest it into reality, and it becomes like this amazing musical like genius piece of music, that's how.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully
It
something like that
will.
will happen. Well, I'll let you know how I get on with that.
Wow. You have to
Yeah.
share it.
Yeah, you have to share it with us.
Oh yeah, I will. Yeah, I will share some of my stuff.
Good. Looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both for being here. It's been
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you,
It's
Priya.
been a pleasure. Ria, it's been lovely to meet you.